Welcome to RGES High School Grammar. This lesson is on sentence structure, Part 1. There are several ways you can categorize types of sentences, and one would be according to their use, their intent. For instance, I could talk about a declarative sentence that declares something, an interrogative sentence that asks a question. But we are more interested today into talking about 4 kinds of sentences according to their structure. And those 4 sentences are going to be simple, compound, complex, and compound complex. Today we are going to talk about the first 2, simple and compound, and we will continue our instruction in Part 2. So these are, again, the 4 types of sentences categorized according to structure. Now, when we have a definition of what is a sentence, we simply say that a sentence is a group of words that expresses a complete thought. A group of words that expresses a complete thought. A simple sentence, the first one up here, is defined as a group of words that expresses a complete thought that has one subject and one verb. A more formal definition, a simple sentence has one main clause. A main clause contains a subject and a predicate and can stand alone as a sentence. So something very, very simple, okay? The boy ran is a simple sentence, but it doesn't have to, the sentence itself doesn't have to be simple, but we have one subject, okay, one verb, and it stands alone as a sentence, meaning it makes complete sense by itself. Okay. Jordan led his horse into the ring. Jordan is the subject. Led is the verb. And the rest of us, it continues with detail about how he led the horse or where he led the horse, but it still has one subject, one verb, and it makes a complete thought. Jordan led his horse into the ring. A compound sentence. The definition of a compound sentence is that it has 2 or more clauses, 2 or more main clauses. Remember, a main clause has to be able to stand alone as a sentence. 2 or more main clauses linked by, a coordinating conjunction or by a semicolon. I'll go into that a little more detail in just a second. Okay. So a compound sentence has 2 main clauses. Another phrase for a main clause is an independent clause. An independent clause contains a subject and a verb and can stand alone, expressing a complete thought. Okay. So compound sentences cannot be joined together with just a comma. We can never write that. That would be wrong. You must join them together one of 3 ways. So you could either join these 2 ideas together with a comma and a coordinating conjunction. I'll come back to let you recognize those in a minute, or with a semicolon, or making 2 separate sentences, no longer having a compound sentence. So continuing to look at some explanatory examples, here's a sentence: I kicked the ball. I have one subject, I have one verb, it makes sense, so it is an independent clause, It's not missing anything, any information to make it have a complete thought. And it is simple because it only has one. Now notice, I could have expanded my subject. I could have said Dick and Sally kicked the ball. Here's my subject, here's my verb, and notice I have what we would call a compound subject, but all together this stands as one subject, one group of people doing the action, one action. Okay. And so that is also simple. It is a simple sentence with a compound noun. Or compound subject right here. I could have instead said, I kicked and rolled the ball. Here I have a subject and I have two verbs. So even though I have two verbs, I have one subject doing both actions. This also is another simple sentence. It is a simple sentence this time with a compound verb. Notice going back, when I had my compound subject, I joined them with an and. I could have joined it with an or also. And when I have my compound verb, I joined it with an and. I could have joined it with an or. Okay. So the main point here is a simple sentence can have compound elements, either a compound subject or a compound verb. Giving you an example here again now of a compound sentence. Recall, a compound sentence contains at least two independent clauses. An independent clause has a subject and a verb and makes sense. It can stand independently. So a compound sentence has two independent clauses. To repeat myself, these clauses can be joined, these independent clauses can be joined by a coordinating conjunction, a comma and a coordinating conjunction, or by a semicolon. When you join two independent clauses with only a comma, I threw the ball, comma, he caught the ball. There's two independent clauses, but they're joined only by a comma. That is a grammar error. That's called a comma splice. A coordinating conjunction is a word that glues phrases, words, or clauses together. Let me give you a list of all the coordinating conjunctions here next. So here's the complete list of coordinating conjunctions. And recall now that this is not the only reason we use these words, but they can be used to join two independent clauses together to form a compound sentence. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to actually take some text, more like real text you would be inclined to run into, and let's look at them and classify them as simple or compound sentences. So we're going to be looking at these first two paragraphs here and on Shakespeare's theater, and the first thing I'm going to do is consider every single sentence. I'm going to mark in the sentences. First I want to let's mark the subject with red. In Shakespeare's time, a stage wasn't just one type of space. Plays had to be versatile. Okay, a stage is my first subject. Plays is my second subject. It says, Let's mark our verbs then. Well, let's continue on, actually. The same play might be produced in an outdoor playhouse, an indoor theater, a royal palace, or, for a company on tour, the courtyard of an inn. The same play is really my subject. Okay. So let's go back now and look at my verbs. We'll mark those green. In the first one, it says, in Shakespeare's time, a stage wasn't, and we typically leave the word not off. We can talk about that later, but the verb is was. Stage was. Plays had to be versatile. So had to be is my verb. Okay. The same play might be produced in an outdoor playhouse, an indoor theater, a royal palace. So the play, what am I saying about the play? What's the action? It might be produced. Okay. Or, for a company on tour, the courtyard of an inn. No new subject there. We're still talking about the play being produced. And all the rest of it is just where it's produced. So here we have one. Let's get third color here. Here we have one main clause. We have a second main clause. In this case, we join them together with a semicolon, so that makes a compound sentence. And in the second, this next sentence, we have one main clause. And it is a simple sentence. So here we have a compound sentence and a simple sentence. Let's look at the next paragraph. In any of these settings, men and boys played all the characters, male and female. Who or what am I talking about? My subject, men and boys. What is the action they're doing? My verb is played. So here's one subject and one verb. Okay. Continuing on, acting in Renaissance England was an exclusively male profession. My next subject is acting, and my next verb is was. Notice what happens. We did not start a new sentence with the word acting. It's not capitalized with a period before or an ending punctuation mark. Instead, we have a semicolon. And so that makes the sentence itself compound. A compound sentence joined again by a semicolon. Let's continue on. You try to mark the next, try to mark the rest of the paragraph and come back and we'll talk about that after you've tried to identify it. Okay, let's look at the rest of it together. We have audiences had their favorite performers, looked forward to hearing music with productions, and relished the luxurious costumes of the leading characters. First off, notice we have one subject and three verbs. Those verbs represent a compound verb combined together with the and there. And we do use commas. Let me, this is the end I'm talking about, right there. All right. So this is one subject, several verbs. That is a simple sentence with a compound verb. Finally, in the last sentence, we have noticed we needed no semicolon. Okay? We needed no comma with a coordinating conjunction. Now this might here look like a comma with a coordinating conjunction, but it really is, it is in a way, but it's not used to combine two main clauses. So it's not a compound sentence. It's just combining my verbs, my three verbs, had, comma, looked, comma, and relished. The last sentence, the stage itself, second to the last sentence, the stage itself was relatively bare. One subject, one verb, simple sentence. We'll talk more about things that are added to verbs like bear and looked forward to hearing music. We'll talk about those things later, but right now we're just learning to identify the types of sentences. Finally, it says, for the most part, playwrights used vivid words instead of scenery to picture the scene on stage. One subject, playwrights. One verb, used. Okay, so we are expecting, we have this comma here, but it's for another reason. There's no comma needed to join. There's only one independent clause. You need a period at the end. So, by the way, notice the spelling of the word playwrights. That's commonly misspelled. So the last sentence is also simple. So you're going to be giving examples of simple and compound sentences. You're going to want to memorize your coordinating conjunctions. There's only 7 of them, and you're going to want to understand the difference. And when you are writing your sentences, you conjoin simple sentences together by writing a comma and a coordinating conjunction between them. For instance, I could have joined these two or joined these two if it would have made sense to do that, or by using a semicolon. Okay. I'm trying to get you very sensitive to your use of sentences. When you have a complete thought and you have no intentional reason for joining it, use your period. Okay, do your worksheet, and we'll talk about anything else when you come to class.